This is the Solid Signal podcast for the week of September 7th, 2020. Now, if you're listening to this on Friday, September 4th, you caught me. That's right, I'm recording this before Labor Day so that I can take a nice Labor Day off on Monday, just like all the rest of you. But it doesn't mean that the podcast is going to suffer because I've got plenty of stuff to talk about. If you are listening to this on the day that it comes out, that is September 8th is the normal premiere day. Well, I hope you had a great Labor Day. I intend to have one too. You're on one side of it listening to it, and I'm on one side of it making this podcast, but it doesn't matter. This year, Labor Day is certainly something that we deserve. It's something that if you are lucky enough to be able to take a day of rest on Labor Day, well, give yourself a pat on the back, because this year it's something that I think that we all could need a little bit more of, which is rest. Anyway, the subject for this week's podcast has got to be the NFL kickoff, which starts this coming week on Thursday and ends, by the way, in Raymond James Stadium. Raymond James Stadium is a site familiar to those fans of Solid Signal because it's a place where we implemented what was at the time the largest 4K installation in history in the owner's box. And we're very proud of that, even though it was at this point, I think it was 4 years ago already. But it continues to be an award-winning site, and we're very proud of it. At any rate, let's talk a little bit about football. You know, if you read the Solid Signal blog or listen to this podcast, you will find that I talk very little about the medical issues facing our world today because, folks, I believe that you have probably every opportunity to hear as much as you possibly want about that particular topic, and you don't need to hear it from me. I've got plenty of other things to talk about. But on the other hand, it's impossible to imagine that it hasn't touched every single one of you, and especially if you're an NFL fan, it's touched the league. Now, the NFL is not as affected by things as, say, the NBA or Major League Baseball have been because they just hadn't started their season. It looks like every team is being very, very careful, and there have been very few positive tests. Despite that, it seems like from what I'm reading, the NFL is testing players every single day, testing teams every single day. They're not requiring people to be in a bubble like NBA, but on the other hand, what they are doing is making sure that everybody stays as safe as possible. I think that you can say the NBA was not always the league that was the most concerned about safety in the past. And I really don't want to get too far into that. But when it comes to the things happening to us in 2020, they certainly are doing their best to make sure that everybody stays safe. And speaking of staying safe, I think that we can all agree that the safest and easiest way to enjoy all of this great NFL action is to sign up for NFL Sunday Ticket from DirecTV. I have to stick in a plug for Sunday Ticket because, you know, it's solidsignal.com, the parent of this podcast. We are AT&T preferred dealers, and we do offer NFL Sunday Ticket. I think it's a great package. I think it's expensive as all get out. Don't get me wrong. But what you get every single game, every single Sunday is a lot of value. And especially if you're a football fan, you can't live without it. This year's Sunday Ticket is better than ever. There are more opportunities for waivers if you do not have DirecTV. You just have to kind of prove that you can't get DirecTV where you are, and you will be able to qualify for a waiver in many cases. I make no promises. It used to be just college students, and they've kind of expanded it out just to people who cannot get DirecTV because of certain issues. But I still think that the best way to get Sunday Ticket is through DirecTV because you get access to the Fantasy Zone channels, the Red Zone channel. You get free streaming through the app of every game every Sunday. It really is a fantastic value considering, yeah, you do pay a lot for it, but what you get for it is certainly worth it. Now my question is, who's going to do pretty well this year and who's going to do pretty poorly? A lot of focus is going to be on the New England Patriots, which find themselves without Tom Brady or Bill Belichick or Rob Gronkowski, who have all kind of gone their separate ways this year. Will that team be another also-ran for the year, or will they find a way to make it into the Super Bowl as they have in so many years past? What about the Las Vegas Raiders, formerly known as the Oakland Raiders, formerly known as the Los Angeles Raiders? Well, that's a really good question, because the Raiders themselves have been a team that have not done pretty well over the years. They've been a bridesmaid far more than they've been a bride, to put it that way. And it's a team that's had trouble finding a really good kind of following. And that's continuing this year, especially as Los Angeles, which had no football teams for pretty much a generation, now has the Chargers and the Rams. And we're continuing to see huge strides in construction on the new stadiums for those two organizations, as well as on the Raiders Stadium. I haven't been back to Las Vegas, of course, since, I guess it was January of 2020. But even at that time, the new Raiders Stadium was coming along swimmingly, and I have a feeling that they're getting pretty well close to done on it, even though they took a little bit of a break. I'll have to do some research on that, and I encourage you to do so too. But this is a whole new NFL. It's a whole new world that we live in, and it's different than it was before. As I said, there's an emphasis on safety, and there certainly is not going to be an emphasis on watching the games in person in the stadiums. So as we look forward to that, it's a little bit of a different world. We've seen this with NBA. We've seen this with Major League Baseball, how not having fans in the stands maybe changes the energy a bit and changes the way that we think about the game. But as for me, honestly, I've always enjoyed watching these sports at home more than watching them at the stadium. Occasionally I'll go to a game once every 2 or 3 years. And when I do, I splurge on the really expensive seats so that I can enjoy what's going on. But when I say expensive, in most major stadiums, you will pay more for one pair of seats at a Major League Stadium than you do for the entire MLB package for the entire year on DirecTV. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but it just underscores the fact that MLB Extra Innings is a great package year after year. Of course, it's kind of closed off for the rest of the year. If you don't already have it, they're not going to sell it to you for the very few games. I mean, what are we down to? About 18, 20 games for the rest of the season. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But then we'll be moving on to the playoffs, and it should be interesting to see how that goes. The world of sports is always fun. It's always changing, my friends. And the one thing that doesn't change is that there's only one way that you can get all of the sports from all of the teams. The most sports from anybody is from DirecTV. And I know that I'm sounding a little bit like a salesperson, but I am sticking in a plug for Solid Signal, an AT&T preferred dealer. You can call them and get set up with satellite TV if you don't already have it, or add one of these sports packages to your DirecTV existing satellite system just by calling 866-726-4182. That's 866-726-4182. I sure would appreciate you doing it that way rather than calling the call center overseas. What you're doing is, first of all, you're employing about 60 Americans in our U.S.-based call center. We do not have an overseas operation like a lot of companies do. And you'll also get better service. You'll get personalized service from somebody who will actually give you their phone number so you can call them back if you need something else. And you'll just be supporting a good small business, a small business that I've been proud to have been associated with for almost a decade, who has taken great care of me, who's been the company that's provided me the opportunity to do these great podcasts for you, and one I'm very appreciative for. So shop at solidsignal.com. If you have any questions about adding and changing DirecTV service, call them 866-726-4182. That's about it for me for the podcast this week. Looks like time flew by. And so I'll be looking forward to talking to you more next week with a whole bunch of new content. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and remember, 2021 is only 3 months away. Best news I've heard all day.